It's January 25th, 2025, and we're here at San Francisco's Civic Center Plaza. This iconic public space at the heart of San Francisco has been a focal point for civic activism for decades. On one side, the 21st Annual Walk for Life West Coast has garnered a huge crowd of hundreds of people advocating for anti-abortion views. Across the street at the public library, a much smaller group of about 80 people stands in stark contrast, gathered for a pro-choice counter-protest. While the crowd here is more intimate, their voices are just as resolute, calling for reproductive justice and the preservation of bodily autonomy.
You've got to respect women, and you've got to respect their right to decide whether they want to have a child or not to have a child. And that goes for anyone else who can get pregnant too, not just women.
The tension between these two groups, though physically separated, is palpable, as both sides make their case in a city known for its progressive values.
I'm here at the San Francisco Main Library, where a protest is underway against the 21st Annual Walk for Life, which is happening across the street at San Francisco City Hall. So far, there are about 80 people here. It's about 12:30 p.m., and we're going to see how this progresses throughout the day.
I remember when Roe versus Wade came in I believe it was 73, women and girls trying to make choices about their own bodies and their own lives and their own humanity.
What brought you here today to this protest?
There's a protest across the street against women's rights to decide what happens to our bodies and when and whether we want to be pregnant, and we're here to defend that human right.
And I can't help but notice the sign that you've brought here today. Could you maybe tell me a bit more about that?
My sign says everyone knows I've had an abortion. I had an abortion about 15 years ago, and because of that choice, I was able to have my 7-year-old and 4-year-old child that I've chosen, and a beautiful family with my husband. And I wish that the people who were protesting our right to choose understood that a lot of us are pro-family and deeply pro-life in the choices that we make.
And if there was a message that you were to send to those who are protesting just across the street, what would that be?
Women are not broodmares. We're humans, and women's rights and reproductive rights are human rights.
The protesters are arguing that the laws restricting abortion rights unfairly impact marginalized communities, particularly women of color and LGBTQ+ individuals.
Yeah, well, we have heard of this protest recently about reproductive rights, but also, LGBTQ rights. So we are here to protest on that.
And is this conversation going on at your school right now?
No, it's going on at my school. Us kids are talking a lot about it and thinking of ways we can help our community in this really not so great time. So yeah.
And what are your biggest concerns with the incoming administration?
Yeah, well, personally about the LGBTQ rights, but in general, the treatment in civil rights in general. Removing liberties to people, immigrations, reproductive rights. So all the things that have been fought for decades, and now we are losing them, and just within weeks.
I have a concern that they're like ruining what we've worked for, and they don't know, but they're ruining our old, when we get older, they're ruining our life.
The demonstrators are making a strong statement against the anti-abortion rhetoric, calling for what they term reproductive justice, a broader framework that they say guarantees bodily autonomy and the right to choose.
The Walk for Life West Coast has officially begun, and we see a crowd here of hundreds, if not thousands, of people who believe in defunding Planned Parenthood, who believe that every life is a human right and are pro-life. At the border here, right behind me, between the two protests, we see a small group of counter-protesters demanding our body, our right to decide. Both groups have been able to remain relatively peaceful thus far, with a strong police presence helping to moderate the crowd here today.
We see signs saying life is a human right, abortion is not health care, protect them both, defund Planned Parenthood. On my right, we see abortion on demand and without apology, keep abortion safe.
This demonstration also follows President Trump's controversial pardons of anti-abortion activists convicted for obstructing access to reproductive health clinics earlier this week. As the march began, we stepped into the crowd to hear directly from participants why are they here and what fuels their opposition to abortion.
Would you mind sharing what brought you here today?
We're here to stand up for life, for the vulnerable and those that don't have a voice. So from conception to natural death, we believe life is sacred and should be protected.
Do you have any concerns with the incoming administration and any of their policies or decision-making in the last week?
Absolutely none.
Yeah.
We're thrilled.
He's already done more. We believe Trump is the most pro-life president we'll probably ever see, or what we've ever seen. And already in the 5 or 6 days, he's done incredible things for the pro-life movement and protection of life. So we believe there's going to be good that comes from what he does.
What brought you here today?
Oh, I am a believer in the Lord Jesus who has created life, and it begins at conception, and the thought of the terror in the womb of a baby being torn apart breaks my heart and breaks God's heart. And so I am so supportive with my son and my friends here to try and have our state recognize that life begins in the womb and all lives matter.
What do you hope to see with the beginning of the second Trump administration's term?
I'm kind of leaving politics out of it. It's more about Jesus. It's not about Trump, but, I like Trump, a lot of different things about him, but I don't think it's up to Trump. I think it's up to God ultimately. And God has a way of doing things in his time. And what we're seeing play out with Trump's second term, I think, is definitely a role in God's perfect plan.
And how do you feel about the turnout that you've seen here for the Walk for Life?
I think it's a good turnout. It's a lot of people do a lot of work on small little places, and it's good for everyone to kind of all come together and just be supported by this number of people. So I think it's about the same that I've seen in past years. How
does the beginning of the second term of President Trump's administration, influence the work that you and the Catholic Church do?
I think he's already signed in a few different things. When a president, a vice president, senators kind of come out and support people, I think it's just people get encouraged by that. So I think that's a good thing.
There was a counter protest across the street from the gathering point. What would be any message that you would share with them?
They're doing what they believe is right. We don't believe it's the right thing, but I would say good for trying and doing what you think is right.
The scenes here today are a stark reminder of the sharp divisions over abortion in the United States, a debate that continues to challenge the nation's identity and unity. Reporting for the Peninsula Press, I'm Subkhanberdina.
And I'm Rebecca Jattan.